Two sisters, Anna and Jenny, played by Awkwafina and Sandra Oh, have a dysfunctional relationship, having been raised by a neglectful mother, resulting in Jenny becoming a brash, wild child who never grew up, whilst Anne turned to the comfort of TV, and in particular a popular long-running game show, which served as her safe zone growing up. As adults, Anne is slouching, quiet and reserved, whilst Jenny is still a crazy party animal. However, when the pair receive news about their mother going missing, leaving a huge debt behind her which falls upon the sisters to pay, Jenny convinces the timid Anne to try for the game show that she loves so much to see if she can win big, having seen her answering along to the show with 100% accuracy. Thus begins a road trip which takes them to potential fame and fortune. The trailer for Quiz Show focused on the crazy comical aspects, and the pairing of Awkwafina and Sandra Oh promised a rather different dynamic from what you'd normally expect from the duo. Awkwafina would typically be the brash and somewhat obnoxious one, whilst Oh would usually be cast in the more sensible and mature role. This flipping dynamic certainly works, and it's clear that the pair enjoyed playing against type within the film. Throw in Will Ferrell as the game show host Terry McTeer and Jason Schwartzman as the far too nice to be real long-standing champion of the show. The mix is about right for a fun-packed comedy film. But the end result, however, isn't as funny as the trailer suggested, with pretty much the most amusing moments already showcased in the marketing on the run-up to the release. However, this isn't actually a bad thing, because what fills out the runtime from that point is a sometimes sweet and charming tale of two estranged sisters who have to come together and find common ground to rebuild their fractured relationship after a childhood of neglect. By the final act of the film, I'd kind of forgotten that I was supposed to be watching a comedy, and I was drawn so much into the heartfelt nature of the tale. This is a sweet and sporadically funny film that won't necessarily be one that I'll watch again, but it was diverting enough to entertain me for the runtime. Jessie Buckley, Riz Ahmed and Jeremy Allen White are in a film that explores love and whether there can be a scientific method to establish what it is. And if everyone believed that there was, what would happen if you begin to fall out of love or find attraction to somebody else? In the near future, a scientific method to determine whether a relationship would work is introduced. By removing a fingernail from each of the couple for testing, a system gives results of either 100%, which means both partners love each other equally and are perfectly matched, 50%, one has true love, the other doesn't, so the relationship will likely fail, or 0%, neither are truly in love, resulting mostly with these couples splitting up. The test has become so established that many couples accept the results as fact, even when in their hearts they don't actually believe it. Anne and Ryan, played by Buckley and White, are a 100% match. But when Anne starts to question her feelings and, after taking a role at the institute that conducts the test, becomes close to co-worker Amir, played by Riz Ahmed, it sends her down a spiral of confused emotions and obsession with the test. Feeling very much like an extended episode of Black Mirror, this explores similar themes of technology coming into conflict with human nature, as episodes of that show tend to do. Can science explain human behaviour and emotion? And what if we believe it to such a degree that we ignore our own desires? It's an interesting concept, but whether it warrants the almost 2 hours runtime here is debatable. However, with such a strong cast involved, including support from Luke Wilson and Annie Murphy, any failings that the film has are easily forgiven when the central players are so engrossing and enticing. Buckley is our main focus here, and it's impossible not to connect for her and care for her. As Anna's doubts start to set in, Buckley plays all the fine nuances of the struggles effortlessly. Jeremy Allen White, whose rise in recent history is finally establishing him as a name to watch out for, delivers in a role that could have easily been overplayed, but instead seems somewhat pitiful at times. His reliance on the results of the test possibly meaning that he's missed out on love and life elsewhere. And whilst in lesser hands he would be the wrong partner for us to dislike, instead, we kind of care for what this all means for him as Anna starts to drift away from him. Rounding off the trio, Riz Ahmed excels as he's dealing with his own personal loss of love and reluctantly connects with Anna. There's layers within this tale that could have been explored in greater depth, and the ending leaves a fair bit of ambiguity as to the future of the characters, never seeming to settle on a decisive answer as to what is love. And maybe that's the point. You can't divine what true love is, and what relationships will stand the test of time, with no manner of science ever being able to make sense of human behaviours and emotions, and especially not lumping them down into a yes, no, and possibly result. Solid performances lift up this otherwise occasionally underdeveloped film. Hannah and Liv, played by Julia Garner and Jessica Henwick, are two Canadians backpacking through Australia, who, when they run out of money, take up agency work for a couple of weeks. They are sent out to help run a bar named the Royal Hotel out in a remote mining community in the outback. Meeting the bar owner, Billy, played by Hugo Weaving, and his wife, Carol, played by Ursula Jovich, the pair are confronted by the gruff and somewhat offensive nature of the isolated town through Billy's expletive-filled introduction. Liv shrugs it off as just how folk are in this isolated community, whilst Hannah becomes concerned that maybe they should leave. The first busy night that follows sees the pair continue in this manner, Liv shrugging off any comments and male gaze attentions with jest, while Hannah grows more and more cautious and concerned. The next day, one bar patron, Matty, played by Toby Wallace, befriends the pair, making up for his lewd behaviour the previous night, which seems to calm Hannah's concerns somewhat. However, as the days progress, more and more things come to light that build the tension of isolation in a potentially hostile and toxic environment. The Royal Hotel plays out pretty much as you would expect from the premise. Two young females in an isolated community of predominantly males find themselves the focus of unwanted attention, yet doesn't go as far as many other films which share that premise. This is a good thing, as the concept is one that could have quite easily turned into a tropish, generic horror in the final act, but here the focus is instead on the constant and escalating tensions and potential danger, with a variety of male characters who can seem both good-natured and menacing at the same time. The uncertainty of this community and who can be trusted is what helps make watching this film a nervy, heart-racing 91 minutes. The final act doesn't actually deliver what you overall expect, but it feels it's what the situation deserves and what the message that the film is trying to convey necessitates. The performances of the whole cast, it must be said, are what makes this all come together and work in what is essentially a bottled representation of coping with unwanted male gaze and demeaning misogyny that is sadly all around us in the world today, condensed into a short runtime. If you fancy 91 minutes of uncomfortable dread where you're constantly on edge, this is definitely the film for you.